AI, is it coming for your job? Is your job going to be hasta la vista, baby? That's right. It could be. Is the Terminator and all of its artificial intelligence coming for you? Coming for your job? It's coming to my world, into my job, into real estate, and into lending. So myself and our infamous lender, Mr. Dave D'Souza from Glendale, California, we're going to talk about that and market updates, what's happening right now today with interest rate and what's going on with the Fed and all those things that you want to hear about right here, just at the end of the year here, before the end of the year. And we're going to get into that right now. We're also going to talk about how artificial intelligence is affecting some people's jobs and what the future looks like with artificial intelligence, okay? No further ado, let's bring on Mr. Dave D'Souza.
Good morning, Cash. Thank you very much. Nice to be with you, and I hope everybody had a great holiday from myself and Cash. Thank you. Just going to give you a quick recap of the markets from last week. Relatively quiet week because of the Christmas holiday. Rates ended the week about 0.125% higher. Our par rate is now at about 6.75%, which is pretty much where it was a couple of weeks ago. It improved the week before, and then this week it kind of went up a little bit again. And stocks ended the week relatively flat to maybe about 0.5% higher. Things that affected the markets last week were consumer confidence coming in lower than expected, which actually was slightly helpful to rates. But then jobless claims towards the end of the week, the day after Christmas, came in lower than expected, which showed a strong employment market. And so that was not particularly good for rates. All in all, a relatively quiet week. And at some point, Cash, if you want, we can do a quick recap of where we were this time last year with rates was about 0.5% better.
0.5% better last year this time?
That's right. So December 27th of 2023, we were at a 6.25% par rate. And December 27th, 2024, we're at a 6.75 par rate.
6.75. And your rate is very competitive. I know that. And that's your par rate. So that's not buying points down or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
Right. Awesome. Fantastic. Maybe towards the end of this video, we can get into a little bit of more recap and talk about kind of what your thoughts are with the Fed and his discussion of only doing 2 rate cuts going into 2025 instead of the multiple rate cuts that he was going to do. And that's throwing a little caution to the wind for a lot of people. Rates, as we know, they kind of pick back up again a little bit. And that's where we're finishing out the year right now. Does that sound about right to you, Dave?
That's about right.
Okay,
sounds about right.
Well, let's get into talking about AI and how it's coming into a lot of people's jobs and their careers and changing things up. And there's been a lot of people trying to deny that, fight it off, like some did with the internet when that came out right now. And then also social media, I don't need the internet and the social media. It's all crazy. And then, well, if you didn't embrace that by now, you don't have a career. You don't have your own company you're running, because if you're not, I'm sorry?
Or a business.
Or a business, right? Yeah, absolutely right. So it's going to continue to change. It's going to continue to evolve. And if you're not embracing AI, then you're just going to get stepped on by AI, to be honest with you. But a lot of people are scared of it, Dave. I don't know is it coming into your industry, and are you using AI to some sort of a benefit, or is it causing more of an issue in some way?
Well, it's really interesting that you say that, but a lot of people don't realize that AI has actually been a part of the mortgage industry for many, many years now. And let me give you the example I'm talking about. There was a time when there was no automated underwriting system. Credit, income, assets, everything was handwritten by an underwriter. An underwriter would look at the credit report, they look at the income documentation, they look at the assets, and they make a decision. And at a certain point, and I don't know exactly when that was, but at a certain point many, many years ago, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they came out with these automated underwriting systems. And the way an automated underwriting system works is it's just like artificial intelligence. It takes all the historical data. And so based on the historical data, it says if this is what the historical data shows, this is what the future is going to be. And so now we have situations where instead of the underwriter, the automated underwriting system in most cases is actually underwriting the file. The automated underwriting system, and this has been the way for years now, the automated underwriting system reads the credit report. You input the income information, you input the asset information, and the automated underwriting system decides whether or not your loan's approved. And if it's going to approve it, do we want just a pay stub? Do we want tax returns? This whole notion of AI has actually been a part of my industry for a very, very long time.
Are underwriters going to be under the gun pretty heavy now with this AI, maybe kind of kicking them to the curb a little bit?
Well, and there is always that possibility, but here's the key. The AI that you get out is only as good as the AI you put in.
Yes, agreed.
So
100%.
as an example, I could get an approval. Let's say someone has decent credit. I could say, well, let's put in $100,000 a year for their income, and let's put in, $50,000 in the bank in their assets, or $150,000, whatever. And yes,
Right.
I'll get an approval. But the output that you get is only as good as what goes in. So here's the
Right.
critical part. Where the underwriter is critical is making sure that the data in is accurate. So
Exactly. Okay.
right. The underwriter, the credit is largely read from the credit report, which is pretty much from the three bureaus, and it's raw. But the income, what income is put into the machine, is calculated by the underwriter. What assets are put into the machine is still calculated by an underwriter. Now, my personal belief is as time goes on, underwriters will do less and the automated system will do more.
Right. Yeah. Streamline
But
it.
as we stand right now, underwriters are still a very, very, very large part of the process in virtually all loans that are underwritten. There's very few, if any, that are just purely automated underwriting.
Okay.
I
Gotcha.
don't know if
Well,
that answers your question, but that's
it sheds some light. Thank you. And I'm going to talk about how it affects some real estate in some positive and negative ways. But also, a lot of people are out there thinking it's like, Terminator, right? Coming for your job, right? With all of its artificial intelligence attached, the robotics and all these things, and they're going to replace everybody. Well, not really. At the end of the day, there are some things, data-driven things and data points. That's why I was asking about the underwriters. That's going to streamline that for sure, I think, in my opinion. But will it completely eliminate the underwriter? That's $1 million question. We don't know yet. As far as in real estate, I think residential real estate, you're going to be completely fine because you have such an emotional element, a human element, if you will, involved in residential real estate purchases and sales. Selling your home or buying a home, there is so much that goes into this emotionally that I don't see AI being able to do that at all. Now, commercial real estate, that could be more interesting because that's more dollars and cents. Square footage and size and what it's going to cost and cap rates and all these kind of things that come into play. Is the warehouse going to be big enough and these type of things, parking rules and laws. So those decisions could be made a lot quicker with data-driven mechanisms and AI systems, right?
And if I may just add a quick thought onto what you just said. Last week, we talked briefly about the different approaches when buying. When you're talking about commercial real estate, when you're talking about investment purchase, it's not emotional.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about
Right.
the money.
Exactly.
But much easier to do an analysis that's automated. But when you're talking about a family buying their home, completely different conversation.
There is so much that goes into it, so much, but we can use AI and we do use AI. We are using AI now and have been for a long time. We could even talk about how Zillow's been using AI with the algorithms and the different data that it compulates and puts together to come up with their Zestimates and different things of that nature. I'm looking at it, AI is like going to be an assistant. It's going to assist us in so many things, right? It's going to really streamline so many processes that it's going to change up the speed of how things are handled. And it's also going to eliminate a couple jobs along the way. But that doesn't mean that you're done, you're gone. It's just that you're going to have to adapt. And I think this is going to become the era of adaptability, right? As Charles Darwin said, long time ago, it's not the smartest that survive or the strongest that survive, but those that are most adaptable that survive. And being in business for as long as I have now, I completely agree with that. What do you think, Dave? What do you say about that?
No, I completely agree. And another very important point to keep in perspective here as you take a step back and look at artificial intelligence, two things. First thing is the first word in that phrase is artificial. And think about it for a minute. What is all this artificial intelligence? What is it learning from? Human experiences. You've got this artificial intelligence that is being recreated, learning from initially what was the human experience. So if you remove that human experience from the equation, then what does the artificial intelligence do then? Just keep learning from itself?
Right, exactly.
I mean, the whole notion of artificial intelligence, take self-driving cars as an example, right? Any of this artificial intelligence is going back to what have humans done before. So a large part of the data that drives artificial intelligence is actually coming from what? Human beings.
Human beings, right. For now, but soon they're going to be just coming from more computer systems that have the data in there already, and it's just going to be firing back and forth all over the place and all over the world, right? So, which again is just going to streamline everything. You're going to be able to get everything in a nanosecond, right? You can just even think about it, boom, you can have it probably shoot right into your phone, and you have the information. That's how crazy it has already been, actually, to be honest with you. Not that it's going to get that way, but but AI does fall short in a couple things. And when it comes to residential real estate, and I'm not saying that just because I'm a realtor, I'm trying to protect my job. No, this is what I've seen for a long time. And I just have always thought this, even years ago when we were talking about AI and all the different things coming into play, that there's just no way that because of this human element, because of all the emotional segments,
the emotional component, yes.
Components that come into the real estate transaction, with meeting with people, with, and honestly, and you probably know this too, Dave, being in the lending business, people don't like to talk about their finances, where they're at financially, because we got to get right down to the nitty gritty, right? We got to talk about how much money do you earn? How much money do you owe each month? What's your FICO score? What's your DTI? Number one, people don't want that information out there anyways. They don't want to share it with really many people. But when you're buying a house and you're getting a loan, this is something you're going to have to lay out on the table for people to look at. And then you also want to be careful, right, with encrypting things and things of that nature, and really being very cognizant of how you're filing people's information. Some people are very lackadaisical about it, that I have seen, and some, hey, shred things up right away and put them in the vaults and they're encrypted files, things of that nature. And I always hope that when I'm giving out my personal information that I'm receiving that same respect back, but not everybody does. So with AI, that can be something that presents somewhat of a problem. And I bet you that's some of the big fear factor out there for a lot of people with AI. What do you think?
Yes, I agree. And it's like anything, when there's a learning curve, there's an apprehension, there's a concern, there's a fear. That's normal.
Well, going back to 1984 with that blockbuster movie Terminator, right? Coming up with the "Hasta la vista, baby," and Sarah Connor, and a couple of these fantastic lines that they had in that movie. What was that movie telling us about today? That was in 1984, and look at us now. It's not like we have Terminator coming at us, but maybe Mr. Elon Musk, I don't know what he's got going on right now, but sometimes it's really interesting to see what comes rolling out every day anymore. This is a great time to be alive, I think, right? With all these new developments every day and advancements that we have in things like AI, and just even the self-driving car,
or even robotics. There's a certain segment of one of the companies, I don't know if it's Tesla or SpaceX, but robotics is definitely a significant part of
huge
their research. Yeah, figuring out a way to have robots incorporated into our everyday lives.
Let me talk about another kind of something that falls short for AI with algorithms and these type of things, like Zestimates, like Zillow's Zestimates. Zillow has been around since, I believe, 2006. And they've been very, very popular. The number one searched portal out there for real estate. Homes.com, though, coming right up behind you, Zillow. You better watch out because they're right on your tail. They have amazing technology, Homes.com. Go check them out. They are dumping tons of money, tons of tech into Homes.com. Zillow, you've got some competition on the line. Realtor.com has been giving it a good run for the money too. So between those three right there, and then of course you got Redfin in there. These are your top portals: Redfin, Realtor.com, Zillow, and Homes.com. I would probably go with Zillow, Homes.com, and then you got Realtor.com and Redfin kind of probably battling out for that next slot, somewhere in that ballpark. But here's where they fall short, because everybody, I know this because when I list a property, I already know, I look at the Zestimate before I go to a listing appointment, because I know they're looking at the Zestimate. That's where everybody goes. They may not even go to Redfin or Realtor.com. They're going to go right to Zillow, and they're going to say, what does my Zestimate say about my property, right? Well, you've got to understand there are some inaccuracies about the Zillow's estimate. Number one, I think we all kind of know that it's not going to be spot on like a realtor is going to do or an appraiser is going to do. Hopefully you know that. It's not going to be the exact price. It's going to be a ballpark. And the range can be it could stretch out a little bit, right? It could be 8 or 10% negative one way, or 8 or 10% maybe too much on the other end. So a good realtor or a good appraiser, you're probably going to deal with both of them, because about 90% of people are using realtors to handle their transactions. Okay.
And also, to your point, when you look at all these different engines that are estimating your value, you know that there's room for play, because it's rare that you'll get two of them giving you the same value. Right. Sometimes you can get quite a spread, depending on your price range. You can see a 10, 20, 30, $40,000 spread between, let's say, something Zillow gives you and something Redfin gives you. Right. That in itself tells you there's, how accurate could that be? Because it can't both be right.
And relative to the property that your price point that you're looking at, if you're looking at $1 million plus properties and it's a 10% one way or the other, you're talking 100K. That's nothing to sneeze at. And then that's another thing that Zillow cannot really monitor is custom homes. And as you and I, Dave, we've had some clients that bought a lot of nice, beautiful custom homes, and it's getting the comps off track homes and these type of homes in these communities really, really difficult when you're doing custom homes or even semi-custom. It throws a new wrench into the program.
Also, what about homes that there's remodeling done and improvements done, but for some reason, either it wasn't with permits, or if it was done with permits, but the permits were never updated? We just had one that we just closed.
Absolutely.
And the records on the public records, which is what Zillow and Redfin and everybody's going to go by, there was a bedroom and bath that was added with permits that never made it to public record. So there's that room for error too. I mean, largely it could be accurate, but again, like you say, in certain circumstances, it could be way off the mark.
No, you're spot on. And I'm going to segue right into the next point I was going to make about the Zillow's estimates. And not just Zillow. I'm not trying to beat up Zillow because I like Zillow. There's a lot of things I do like about Zillow. But for all the portals out there and all the AI out there that's, using the data-driven points and the algorithms to put together their valuations on properties, right? It's not bad. It's really not bad. Some of them are pretty good, right? But some of them are really off. But you just can't 100% rely on what that estimate is telling you. You've got to really have a professional look at it up close, right? And with their knowledge of the market, the area, the homes, what's going on, there's just so much that goes into that big sandwich of knowledge that's coming to actually come up with a valuation on your property. But when people see it on Zillow, especially, it's already in their mind. Hey, it says 1.3 million on Zillow. What do you mean? What do you mean 1.1? Or 999. Well, no, Zillow says 1.3. So there's where the battle begins right there. Now we're fighting against Zillow. Thank you, Zillow. Thank you. Here's something interesting. I want to segue off your conversation about the permits, right, being recorded publicly, right, or with the county or the city. Here's the thing. In 12 states across the United States, 12 states are non-disclosure states, which means when you buy and sell a home, that owner does not have to report it to county or city or public records. Not report it. So the Zillows out there, the Redfins, the Realtor.coms, the Homes.coms, they can't get that information. It's not publicly available.
So you're saying the most current sale data is not even available?
Correct. Well, some of it can be because some people report it or some people don't know that they didn't have to report it. But there's also a lot of people in these 12 states that know they don't have to report it because they're also going to get that's going to be the tax base for that property now, right? So maybe they don't want to report it. They want to leave it up to the county or the city to come up with their valuation. And usually it's lower than the sale price. So that's a win-win for the new owner, right? So that's why in these states, they're not going to disclose that. So they're non-disclosure states. We have 12 of them across the United States. I could tell you one I know for sure is Idaho. That's one of them up there. So that throws off the whole system.
As an example, in California, when you sell a home, that sale price must be reported for property tax purposes.
Absolutely. And it does make it a little more interesting for agents and appraisers. They do have to go into the MLS, and they do anyways, but the public doesn't, and the portals out there, they can't reach MLS to access what true sales prices were, because you'll even see list price. You got to look down and see what the sales price was, and a lot of times that's different. Anyways, I did want to segue in off what you had said before that, yes, 12 non-disclosure states in those states. So, comments below if you want me to send you the states that is non-disclosure. If you're not quite aware of the state you might be in is non-disclosure. And if you're looking at Zestimates and things of that nature, you might be off a little bit. You might even be off a little more than a little bit.
It would stand to reason that in these non-disclosure states, the quality of the data you're getting from these automated valuations, so the quality of the data should be far less than it would be in a disclosure state.
Right. Absolutely. On your end with lending, Dave, so we talk about the underwriters, and again, very data-driven job that they have, and they're putting documents together, they're looking at everything. They're right. I guess, do they have to decipher which documents are legitimate? Like maybe they've seen some fake documents, or is that one of the underwriters' jobs?
I have to say, a lot of that starts at the front end with my team, and by creating an environment that says integrity will not be compromised, and it is a crime, it is a fraud, it is a felony to present documents that are not legitimate, that creates an environment where people have to think twice before doing something stupid like that. But beyond that, if you do have someone that presents documents that aren't authenticated, we
Right.
have authentication processes, and that's actually part of it is the underwriter, but a large part of it has to do with stuff that we do the processing end before it even actually gets into underwriting.
Gotcha.
So yes, there is what we call quality control, authenticating documents. So if somebody's provided, as an example, if somebody's provided John's bank statements with Mary's name on it, that's something that we check. If someone is providing, a pay stub where it's not really accurate data, or maybe a manufactured pay stub, we check that.
Gotcha.
If someone has their real set of tax returns and then a backup set of tax returns that they use for loans, we check that. So
All right.
there are definitely stop gaps in place to ideally eliminate all types of deviation, and it's largely successful.
Gotcha. Well, I see that that's something AI is probably not going to be able to do, right? And maybe at some point they got a way to feed that documents in there and they can authenticate, but that's really, you need a human for this today, right?
Well, you do and you don't. And I'll tell you what, right now we do, yes. Now, right now, today we do. But quite differently than real estate, and I'm saying this very transparently, quite differently from real estate, there are many more facets of my industry that could be automated. As an example, credit is already automated. It is what it is. You go to the credit bureaus and you pull.
Yeah.
Income. If we get to a point where every single employer adequately and accurately reports data on what the W-2s show, on what the pay stubs show, it's going to be only a matter of time before these automated underwriting engines are able to go straight to the bureaus or straight to wherever this data is, pull W-2 information, pull pay stub information without the buyer ever having to provide any of that. Go to their bank accounts, go through an automated system and access their bank accounts, access the bank accounts where the money is, and look at what's there, look at the history of what's there. So there is certainly a movement where I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but in the mortgage industry, we will see much more automation much sooner than we will in the real estate industry.
On the front end of things in the lending world, I don't see like your position being challenged too much, because in like real estate, you've got to talk to somebody and have a connection, a human connection, with making them feel comfortable with talking about their finances and their FICO scores and all this personal information, so you could share with them the options available. And I just don't see an AI or a computer or a Google or anything like, here, give me some information. I'll give you the options. There's just too many variables in between each one. Am I right? What do you think about it?
And here's what I will say. For really simple cut and dried situations where someone's been on their job for a very long time, their income is
W2.
a salary that's really set.
W2, right? Are W2 buyers, right?
Well, not necessarily W2, because there's a lot of W2 buyers whose income is not simple. As an example, people in the entertainment industry, they could have multiple W2s from multiple employers and they overlap, and then this one took a break and then came back. So, but let's say someone's been a teacher for 10 years, 5 years, and their salary is pretty set. Their income is really cut and dried. Their assets are really cut and dried, and their credit's good. For an easy profile like that, it's much easier to do automated underwriting. But there's a large number of people, most people that I talk to, whose situation is not so simple. It's not so cut and dried. And before you go through the whole process, there's another piece that, like you talked about, getting comfortable. A lot of people don't know what their options are, because there are so many options.
Yeah, 100%.
And so that's why when you get started into this process of thinking about buying a home, before you go out there and fall in love with a house, it is critical to have a no cost, no obligation conversation
100%.
with someone in the mortgage industry like myself, who can say, okay, let's take a look at your situation. Let's find out what you're comfortable, and let's see how we can make a match between what you're comfortable with and what you qualify for. And that,
100%.
again, goes back to the human element, which automated underwriting is very difficult to replace. And just like when someone's trying to buy their first home, or they're trying to decide if this is the home for them, people sometimes need to be talked through. They don't always know exactly what they want. There are some people who know exactly what they want.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are like, well, what's this and what's that? And how do,
right.
Explaining to them the tax benefits of ownership and the tax deductibility of mortgage and the time to valuation of money. There's a lot that goes into that unless they've done hours and hours of research on the, on the web, there's still the practical application of how that translates into their process. Mm-hmm. And that's where someone like me would come along.
Pre-approved. Not pre-qualified. Pre-qualified,
Yep.
okay, if you have to. That's anyone can do that in 5 minutes. Let's be honest. but really get a pre-approval where someone's potentially looking
A thorough pre-approval that really evaluates everything.
because you don't want to waste your time and get frustrated, and you don't want to waste everybody else's time, especially your own, because it can become a very frustrating process if you're looking at homes you really can't afford.
Well, and one of the things you may recall from a lot of clients we work with is before the client ever starts looking at homes or before they've actually gone into escrow, most clients that we work with we've already started the pre-approval process before they've ever gotten into escrow. And in most cases, we've actually taken their credit, their income, their assets, and had it approved by underwriting. So we already know exactly what the situation looks like for an underwriter before you actually go out and find a home. So once you find the home, it's a relatively simpler process.
Right. And with an agent that knows the markets and the areas, and we know their price points and their affordability and what they want, of course, they always want to maximize and get as much house as they possibly can, but they've got to be able to afford it, right? And I always have the conversation with them, listen, especially first-time home buyers, you don't want to become house poor. That's the last thing you want to do. I want to find a house close to this restaurant or, Tony's Pizzeria. I love walking to that place. Great. But if you are so strapped on your mortgage and your taxes and your HOA and all those things, you can't go to Tony's Pizzeria when you want. Maybe once a month, it ain't going to cut it, right? We need more pizza than that. Anyways.
And that goes back to a comment I made earlier. There's what you qualify for, and there's what you're comfortable with. And ideally, they're not always the same thing, but ideally, we need to find a match between what you qualify for and what you're comfortable.
Dave, in your experience, just pulling a number out of the sky, out of the people that come in and talk to you and say, hey, this is what I'm qualified for, but this is what I really want to spend. What would you say kind of ratio percentage-wise that you run into people that come under what they can really afford, or what they are approved for? They always come in. I've always seen that they're coming under that a little bit anyways.
I would agree with you that the majority of people are qualified for a little bit more than what they're comfortable with. But on the flip side of the coin, there are people that are comfortable with more than they qualify with. Those are typically self-employed people who actually make more than they show.
Okay.
So typically, two salaried buyers are typically what they're comfortable with is close to or somewhat less than what they qualify for. But when you're talking about self-employed buyers, where, they could be arguably really making somewhat more than what their tax returns show, that would be a reverse situation where they would be qualified for more. Sorry, they would be comfortable for more than what they might actually appear to be qualified for. And then you go into things like bank statement programs, or possibly, some form of a stated income or P&L program or something, because what their tax returns show is not a really true indication of what they really make. But outside of that, your point is well made, that most people are comfortable for a little bit less than what they qualify.
And that's what I always tell people too, that the lending world, just like the real estate world, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. And there's lots of little sub-chapters off of everything that could have a profound effect on how things turn out for you. So you want to make sure you're checking the right boxes and making the right decisions going forward, or at least you have the knowledge up front going forward so you can make the best decisions for you and or your family, right? So Dave, let's go ahead and get back into that AI conversation a little bit. There's a couple pieces I didn't quite get to yet. Talk about the estimates and how people are coming up with valuations with AI and some of the negatives about that and things you got to watch out for. Another element is how realtors are using AI for things like marketing and marketing the properties they're selling as well with descriptions. I have seen agents that will actually cut and paste. They'll hit the AI, tell me about such and such a property in this city. And the AI, it does its thing really fast. That's what's so amazing about AI. And it really comes up with some great information about things. It's like, wow, I didn't even know that. Maybe sometimes that happens, right? But I've seen agents that will cut and paste what the AI printed out and just pop it right on the description in the MLS. Woo! Well, hopefully they read that, because some have not read that. I've even seen ChatGPT down below the article or the description. Sorry. For example, on a $400,000 property one time, it came up with luxury home, unbelievably gorgeous, elegant luxury home. Okay. A $400,000 home right next to the freeway is not a luxury home. I'm sorry. Just not making the cash list on luxury right there. Sorry. So, this is why you have to read it. Maybe it says the swimming pool in the backyard is beautiful. This one doesn't have a swimming pool. Maybe it was a pond. Maybe it was a waterfall feature, a water feature of some sort, or a spool, right? But we want to really look at these things.
Maybe it was a puddle.
a puddle. Maybe it was a rainy day, right? I saw Google Earth, saw the back of the property there. So there's a lot of details. So don't be like some of the lazy agents that I'm running across these days that are just using Chat GPT to come up with a description of these properties, cutting and pasting it and putting it right into the description. You can even see the little Chat GPT down at the bottom sometimes. It's ridiculous. Cash McCallum Real Estate, we don't do that. We are marketing experts. We know the homes, we know the areas, we know the right kind of buyers that we need to target for your home. And that's what we do here at Cash McCallum Real Estate.
My personal experience, having worked with you for so long, Cash, is your clients appreciate the due diligence that you do from an overall perspective, from marketing the property, from helping them find property. The due diligence that you put in sets you apart. Right? I just thought I'd mention that.
Well, thank you, Dave. I really appreciate that, man. So a good agent really has to go through these things, but use AI. It's an amazing assistant. It's the ultimate assistant for you, really.
I think what you're saying is use AI, but do your due diligence.
Thank you. Exactly. 100%. It's going to help streamline the processes, and it's going to be an ultimate assistant for people and most businesses. If they learn how to use it, like everything, you have to use it correctly, right? There's ways to ask AI questions. And if you ask it a question one way, you're going to get a whole different layout of the answer that you were looking for. Maybe you weren't looking for that. You ask it a completely different way, and you're going to go get another completely different answer. Have you ever messed with Chat GPT yourself, Dave? Asked it a couple questions?
Not. I
haven't stepped into that world yet.
Okay. I have, to this minute speaking to you, I have not used. The only thing that's automated in my world, in my team's world, is how we underwrite the files. Anything that goes into our market updates or emails that I send out or anything like that, I have not utilized any AI myself.
Okay. Another aspect.
And that's not to say that I shouldn't or I wouldn't. I just haven't yet.
Okay. Gotcha. So another thing we do in real estate too is, and maybe you do in the lending world with, on my website, we have bots, right? We have AI bots that will follow up with people, maybe answer their question real quick, like in a nanosecond, they could get your text response back to you real quick or email, and they could do follow-up things like that just to make sure. And that is very helpful, right? One negative I've seen of that is sometimes they don't know when to stop. Maybe they send them too much information. I have had a client or two in the past said, "Hey, quit inundating me with all this information." I'm like, well, that's my AI bot, Samantha, right? That's not a human. That's my AI bot. And yes, I've named her Samantha, and she's getting you the information in a very, very efficient and timely fashion, right? Which most people really, really appreciate. They're giving them the data that they're asking for. Sometimes maybe a little too much data that they're not really asking for, but could be a little bit of overkill, but AI is improving every day. That's the thing about AI. So it's just going to get better and better and better. But with our clients, and maybe on your end too, we want to make sure that we get them the answers back quickly. And if I can't pick up the phone, I've got my AI bot, Samantha, that'll answer some questions for you real quick. And of course, I will call you just as soon as I become available. One thing I want to say about that is I listen to these voicemails all the time, right? And they'll say, "Hello, this is so-and-so, and I can't make it to the phone. Please leave a message, and I'll get back to you at my first convenience." Well, that's not what you're supposed to say. A lot of people say that. You're not going to get back with somebody at their first convenience. No, you're going to get back to them as soon as possible. That's it. I don't know why they say first convenience. Have you ever heard this, Dave?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard all kinds of lovely things.
Too funny. Anyway, so that's another negative with AI in real estate right now, with following up with people and being there as an assistant. Again, it's really good, but it needs to get a little bit better, and it's getting there. And I think, even within a couple of weeks, it's going to be even better. So are you using AI bots at all in your business?
There are people in my company that use them, but everything that we do, part of my team, is still all human, in the sense that between myself and my team, the emails and or messages that we do are all live human beings.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, when it comes to AI, I would have to suggest don't deny it, don't run from it, don't fear it, embrace it, and it's going to help you. It's going to work for you. It's going to be very game-changing for a lot of people. Just like Arnold Schwarzenegger said, "I'll be back." The Terminator is not coming back. AI is here, and it's here to stay. We don't have to worry about any of that, right? So my only suggestion would be embrace the AI. Let it work for you and with you, right? This is going to be the era of adaptability. And I highly recommend, don't deny it. Don't run from it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't fear it. Just embrace the AI. Let it work for you. It's going to be okay. It's going to be a game changer going into 2025 here if you use it right. So I want to round out kind of our video today here, bringing Dave back into the conversation once more time and just kind of talk about how he feels about the market going into 2025, his speculations real quick. And then also I'll give you mine as well. Dave, what are you thinking about for 2025, my friend?
Well, I'll give you my thoughts in just a sec, but just to go back to something you said at the very beginning of your talk on AI. When the internet first came out, look at the reaction of what it had, and now it's the most integral part of most of our lives. When social media first came out, look at the reaction that people had to it, and now it's a very integral portion of most of our lives. Right. And so the same could be said of AI. There is some resistance to it now. There's a lot of drama around it. I would argue that 5 to 10 years from now, it's going to be in a very different place. It'll just be part of our everyday life, just like the internet.
Absolutely.
And just like the internet, it'll be part of our lives. Anyway, that said, let me just, again, my thoughts are fairly consistent from the last podcast on moving into 2025. Based on the Fed's recap of what their thoughts are with interest rate cuts for 2025, I'm going to say again, with where rates are right now, I think if we will see rates sort of settle into the upper fives, maybe 6-ish, 5.99 to 6-ish range. Needless to say, I would be thrilled to see them go below that. I'm not sure if we will see that during 2025, and I would certainly, and feel free to jump in and echo on this, Cash. If you find the house you like, do not feel like you need to wait for interest rates to improve before you buy. Buy now, and if the house is right and the time is right for you, buy now. Even if the interest rate is not ideal, you can always refinance when it drops.
Agreed, 100%. How many clients do we have that have been waiting and waiting and waiting and just kicking themselves in the butt? Still,
I will tell you exactly how many. Too many.
Too many. That's right. You can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, right? So that's all we can do, and we can't force anybody to buy, but we can just share the information with them. And going into 2025, I'll say from a real estate standpoint, looking into my crystal ball back here for you, Dave, too, right about the rates, with the Fed now limiting to 2 rate cuts for 2025 is what he said. How much do you believe that the Fed is only going to cut rates twice in 2025 now? Think that could change?
I'll tell you what my thoughts are. I will say from a broader perspective, they are intending to do less than what they were before. Mm-hmm. But again, they said they were going to do 6 in 2024. They did 4. So I think that the key that is going to drive what the Fed does, it's not a number they can tell us now. There are 2 key things that are going to drive what the Fed does, and they are employment and inflation, not necessarily in that order.
Right.
If inflation holds steady or even shows some improvement and the jobs market starts to show weakening, that will lead to more rate cuts. That will be more rate cuts than 2. Gotcha. However, on the flip side of the coin, if inflation creeps up and the job market continues to get stronger, we may not even see 2. It's all data dependent. The number they give of how many rate cuts they are, what they're really saying is we were anticipating quite a few, and now there's going to be just a few.
Gotcha.
But what the number of rate cuts we actually see will really all be dependent on the data, jobs and inflation. That's my 2 cents.
Oh, fantastic. I really like that. So for me in the real estate end of things, I see inventory picking up some more. I see rates coming down a little bit more, and they are a little more attractive already than they were when they were starting to go north of 7%. I do feel that there is rate fatigue that has definitely been sitting in, as we've talked in some previous episodes before, and that is now going to start coming to fruition. People are giving up on this whole idea of I'm going to stay in this house. I hate the house. I don't want the house. I need to move, but I got such a rate. Well, rent that house out, pull out more equity, go buy another house, whatever you got to do. But I think rate fatigue has set in, and people are going to start going for those purchases, which will bring another listing on the market and another purchase. So I do see inventory picking up. It's already been picking up, right? It's nothing tremendous. We got a long way to go to get to some real high inventory. We're still at a market that's more level, really more neutral and level, if you will, between sellers.
Would you describe current inventory as normal, or it's still below normal?
I would say it's getting closer to that kind of a normal level, and again, this fluctuates through every state and through every city too. For example, we have 2 million homes on the market nationwide as of today, right there. So, we have decent inventory. There's more options for people out there, the buyers that are looking to make those moves, which actually brings more sellers on the market too, because besides just the interest rate lockdown that they've had, they're not finding homes that they want to buy. So now with more inventory coming to the market, that will alleviate some of that and open that up a little bit more. And then sellers, which will become buyers, can now go forward with that transaction, right? So that's what I see for 2025. Do I see a smoking hot, crazy market? No, I really don't. It's all going to be indicative of what these interest rates do too. If they stay where they're at and they go down a little bit, we'll have a little bit of action. Like I said, more people, more sellers will be coming back into the market and that rate fatigue setting in. But I don't see some blistering smoking market. I see just kind of a good normal market really for 2025.
And looking at the chain backwards, the real estate market depends on the interest rates. Well, the interest rate depends on two things, employment and inflation. So it really all starts with that, is employment and inflation. I mean, I'm not suggesting that this is what should happen, but theoretically, if employment were to fall off, job growth and wage growth were to slump off, and inflation in turn comes down because people aren't spending, so they don't have money to spend and they're spending less.
Right.
Ultimately, that will lead to lower interest rates. So that is not a particular healthy lookout for the economy. It's definitely not a healthy outlook for the economy. But that outlook of weakening jobs market and cooling inflation, and the two are linked, will certainly bring interest rates down.
Right. And just to remind people too, real quick, I know we've talked about this in the past too, is that if you want to wait around for those rates to get down to those high 2s and low 3s again, that's going to have to be something catastrophic like COVID happening or war happening before those rates are going to get down to that level again. Don't sit around and wait for that. Please. It's not going to happen.
And even if we did have, there were so many factors that lumped up one on top of the other that got us there. Even if we did have a war that broke out next week, even if we did have another pandemic, we would surely see a short-term improvement in rates. Yeah. But I highly doubt it. I think it'll be a good long time before we see rates in the 3s again.
I do too. And you know, it's also interesting.
I've been doing this for 32 years, by the way.
Sorry, Dave, say again?
I've been doing this for a little over 32 years.
32 years. So another thing that I've seen too is that when something terrible does happen, right? And there's now this opportunity market, there's, oh my God, blood in the streets and, people are giving away their houses and all this kind of mentality that goes on in people's minds that they're going to come in and take advantage of the market. And we're going to get some deals, right? Well, guess what? For a lot of people, when that happens and the world's upside down and the economy's upside down and everybody's afraid and insecure about what the hell is happening, what's going to happen, everybody hunkers down. Nobody's really spending money. That's why they do things like lower the interest rate really low to help stimulate things and keep things moving along. Not that they're going to get crazy, but it'll keep them moving along. And, because real estate has to keep moving along. There are so many jobs created every time a home is bought and sold. There's 2 homes, so many jobs created. It's ridiculous. Probably the number one job creator out there that I've seen is real estate, sales and purchases every time. So again, keep that in your mind, keep that in your hat. If you're waiting around for that rate, something catastrophic is going to have to happen. And then if it does happen, are you really going to be the kind of guy that goes ahead and makes big, large purchases when the world's upside down? Something to think about. Anyways.
And if you remember from my recap of last week, just the most recent reading of consumer confidence was actually down from the last reading.
Consumer confidence was down?
From the last reading, yeah. In other words, 2 weeks ago was a little bit stronger. But we had a reading. Just one of the things that affected the markets last week was consumer confidence, and consumer confidence came in lower than expected and lower than the prior reading, which was good for rates. So you were saying, consumer confidence is an important part of this picture
all day long,
and consumer confidence is also quite closely tied into the jobs market, right?
Yeah.
Because the stronger employment is, the more confident people are about spending when they're making money.
Right.
So if we see a weakening in the jobs market, if we see a weakening in consumer confidence, which will ultimately lead to a cooling of inflation when people are spending less money, then you will see an improvement in interest rates.
I think consumer confidence is one of the most important indicators we have out there. And of course, since our last video, I am paying close attention to the CCL. Okay. And I haven't seen any change in the CCL in just the last week, which is, again, cash's cost for lunch, right? So everything is still the same right now. So no worries there. Anyways, Amy, our producer, in January, she is going to bring her expertise from her past careers before getting into producing these videos and doing all the editing and all the beautiful, wonderful things that she does for Cash McCallum Real Estate, is her background in interior design and professional organizing. Listen, she was in NAPO, right? People at NAPO, what the heck is that? I learned National Association of Professional Organizers. She went into people's homes, usually big, beautiful, gorgeous homes, and she organized the closets, the kitchens, I mean, the house, everything. People, I've seen her going to people's homes that they were, I don't know if you call them a hoarder, but there's a lot of furniture, there's a lot of stuff in there. And she would get it completely organized and help them get their life in check. So there's going to be that. There's going to be some great tips that she could give you about organizing, whether it's for your moves or it's for moving in or it's for why you're living in this house and trying to stay organized. She's got some amazing information to bring in your direction. And additionally, she's a fantastic interior designer. She's got an amazing knowledge of interior design and construction.
Well, it'll be really good to get that perspective. It'll be really, really interesting.
I mean, yeah, it's really very interesting. So she's going to be great to have on. I'm looking forward to having her on this January. Keep an eye out for that.
Well, Cash, as always, thank you for having me. And thank you to Amy, our producer, for putting this together. And most importantly, thank you to our listeners and all of you out there listening to this podcast. We appreciate you. And to our clients that help keep us all supported. Share with us your thoughts on this podcast. Please reach back out to Cash with any feedback you might have, any concerns you might have, any questions you might have, any topics you'd like to see us discuss, or specific questions. So on that note, Cash, thank you very much.
Dave, thanks, pal. Always great having you on. Love our discussions and our chats here. And remember, if you want more cash in your life, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button and keep an eye out for our next videos coming to you soon. See you next time. See you next week.
See you next week, Cash.